We saw something this Tuesday highly unusual, which is the abdication of his own free will of a Gulf state monarch, in this case the Emir of Qatar. We're talking about it with Le Figaro reporter Georges Melbruno, author of the best-selling book Qatar, Secrets from the Safe Deposit Box. Also with us, Egyptian activist and blogger Shahinaz Abdel Salam, the author of Egypt, The Beginnings of Liberty. From London, Jane Kinnemount of the UK think tank Chatham House. And joining us from Tunis, Wahid Bourshan, Managing Director for the Libyan Qatari Holding Company. Welcome back to all of you. Just before the break, we were discussing the issue of democracy. Jane Kinnemount, by the way, I know that there was plans to have elections for this Shura Council in Qatar, which I believe would have been the first elections ever. And I hear that those are now on hold.
That's right. In fact, they have been promising this since at least 2004, and the elections have repeatedly been delayed. Although there is very little public response when they do delay them. It is a small and very rich country, so it hasn't seen the kinds of pressures for democracy that you've seen in other places. But it's still an issue. And this transfer of power is important because it does show the rare example of a ruler giving up or limiting his power voluntarily, which very few of them will. But it's something that could actually strengthen the monarchy rather than leading to democracy. You could say that bringing in young blood is a way to make the dynasty more resilient.
Shahinaz Abdel Salam, do you agree?
Yes. I think Qatar, when they were telling that they were helping in Arab Revolution, it was not at all about, of course, democracy or anything. And I think they will not do these elections, or maybe it will be like a scene, like in all dictatorship. And I think they were just were trying to have, because the ex-emir, he want to have his place, he want to have a big place. Qatar is a very small country, and without any weight in historical or relationship, and they were always being here just like a coordinator or communicator, only this. Today, they have the Muslim Brotherhood. They were helped since maybe years with money, and they Qatar, they have Qaradawi, which is a big Muslim Brotherhood known. So now it's their chance to have this relationships. It will help them to be a very. They have a weight in the relationship between these countries.
But do you agree with Jane Kinnemount that by having this abdication, handing over, having a change of leader, this is a way at least of being responsive to that growing pressure that we've seen throughout the Arab world?
I think it's just the pressure from, Saudi Arabia. They had the ex-emir, and I think the young one, the new one, he has been maybe more close to Saudi Arabia. He's the one who is communicating with Saudi in many tensions between the two countries. So I think it's just a question of pressure and maybe to make we have maybe some new leadership, young leadership.
All right, so Georges, you were talking in part one of our discussion about pressure from the Americans. Shahinaz talking about pressure from the Saudis.
Yes, but I would like to add that if there is pressure, there will be pressures for more democracy in Qatar, but there is also pressure for more conservatism, because Qatar, it's a Wahhabite country, and Qatar is 180,000 people, which means if you have elections, it's 70,000 voters, which is almost nothing. And, for the last 10 years, under the previous emir, we saw a huge development, huge growth with purchase of properties in London, in Paris, etc. The World Cup in 2022 in Qatar. Many Qataris, conservative, feel that we don't need all these purchases. So now Tamim has to answer this demand of conservatism. And I agree with...
so the disconnect between the values and the material goods that they...
Yes, and I think he will answer, he will listen to this demand. Tamim, we don't know him very well, but he's perhaps more conservative than his father or his Ahmad bin Jassem. So he knows that Qatar is a Bedouin country. He has to listen, he is Bedouins. He knows that his legitimacy comes from the Bedouins.
All right, so maybe not Western-style democracy, but he is answerable to his citizens.
Yes.
We have a tweet here. Syrian crisis is where it is because of Qatar, and yet it is an autocracy. We're joined now, by the way, by Nicholas Rushworth from our Media Buzz segment. Nicholas, how are you?
How are you too?
Not so bad. We're talking about whether or not Qatar is going to be staying the course. I've noticed that there's been a lot of speculation that you've picked up on.
Well, I want to start out just having a look at picking up on the threads in this conversation. And this tweet that I've got there for you, what we've got is the new emir, one man, one vote, and he has voted for his son, and that hashtag there is democracy. The new guy on the block is Tamim. There we can see a picture of him, and there's at this point little serious analysis because it's just happening right now, but the Gulf News in the United Arab Emirates has this story saying that yes, there will be continuity. Tamim will pursue the power broker role that we've seen. But at the end of that piece, the analysis is very much what we've heard just now, is that the conservatives in the country, they may resist at some point. The overtly progressive nature of this leadership is that too much,
too fast.
Exactly. And that they may react and may not like it, and that may put a stop to that.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but here in France, some people, those who support Paris Saint-Germain's football club, they might feel like they have a personal stake in all of this, since Paris Saint-Germain is now the property of the Qataris.
Well, PSG has become a huge football team, hasn't it, with loads of money, and you can see the results on the pitch. This is a tweet that's come in wondering, well, is this new emir going to give a blank check to Laurent Blanc? Laurent Blanc being the new coach. He was the coach of France, of course. Now he's taking over at PSG. And there in French we see the tweet. Is he going to give a blank check to him? And what about this tweet? We learned that, in fact, Sheikh Tamim's favourite Premier League player is, in fact, Wayne Rooney. And that striker is definitely on the list of who to buy. So is Wayne Rooney coming to Paris? So that would be a one-off unexpected effect of this changeover of power today.
But of course you don't report rumours.
I'm just ending on a bit of satire, just to put it into a bit of context. This is a satirical tweet from the Queen of England saying that she's had a text from Prince Charles and she thinks this idea of a quick abdication, it's a good one. What do you think, Mummy? I'm only just saying it, pointing it out, and then Elizabeth Windsor replies, well, I'm not going to go there.
Okay. All right, well, thanks for that. Nicholas Rushworth, you'll be back later with more from your Media Buzz segment. The French, like we were saying a moment ago, with a stake in what's going on inside of Qatar. And luck of the calendar should have it that just 24 hours ago, the French president, François Hollande, was in Qatar for an official visit. Turns out the French press revealed on Monday that he's giving the same tax breaks that his predecessor did, a 2008 bill waiving capital gains taxes on property transactions by France's Qatari friends. Hollande coming to Doha with an armada of French business leaders. Nonetheless, though, sending a veiled message to his hosts when it comes to how you arm the Syrians.
We have to agree with other Europeans and also with our American friends because we have some conditions. We cannot imagine providing arms to groups that could one day use them against a democratic Syria or eventually even against us.
So serendipity had that Hollande was there on the eve of all of this, and there he is giving that message, which is pretty strongly worded, saying don't give guns to just anybody in Syria.
Which means it was a clear message to what Qatar did before. And we come back to this meeting in Istanbul a few weeks ago, where the US, France and UK convinced Qatar to stop giving weapons and money to Jabhat al-Nusra, the radicals jihadists in Syria. Now the flow of arms which will go to Syria will pass through the Syrian Free Army, through General Salim Idris. and Qatar will have to backtrack and to be very careful. So I think, and I think the message of François Hollande was, he knew already that Tamim would take the job, and I think there is a kind of puzzle which is taking place now, and I think Qatar will be more careful now in Syria with his aid to the rebels.
Jane Kinnamount, do you agree?
Yes, I think it's important to remember that this recent foreign policy activism is something completely new for Qatar. It's only recently emerged as this wealthy, big player, and for most of the past decade, its role was in balancing, in being a mediator, in trying to be friends with everyone. So you saw this country that was enabled by its wealth and its diplomacy to be friends with both Iran and the US, with Hamas and with Israel. And in the last couple of years, it's been seen much more as going on one side of an increasingly polarised region. It's now finding that there is a backlash, it's making enemies, and it has not experienced this before. So I think there is pressure for change. It already seems that Saudi Arabia is taking on more of a role in masterminding the Gulf support for the Syrian opposition.
Waid Borshan, do you see that there is a pullback coming, and is it a good thing on the part of Qatar?
I think maybe at the current conditions, and I think the pushback they are receiving in so-called, or the Arab Spring, maybe it's a good thing to sit back a little bit. Allow me, Francois, one good news today. Obviously, Qatar have a new emir, but also Libya has a new head of parliament.
That's
who
right.
is essentially the president of Libya. And we're extremely proud, we're extremely ecstatic about the future of Libya. And it so happened, and gratefully, and it's fantastic experience in Libya, is that he's a Maziri origin, or it's not origin, I mean his ancestor. So that gives us a huge dimension that Libya, a conservative country, with all the thinking behind what the Arab Spring is going to look like, have provided a fantastic example in providing a full spectrum of political outcomes that surprised us and surprised Libya in general. So we are very, very proud.
But still a lot of weapons out there in Libya. So when you look at the Syria conflict and you look at the role that the Gulf states have played, you get the feeling that they didn't learn the lesson soon enough when it came to the free flow of weapons into a country.
I agree wholeheartedly. I think there were a lot of mistakes. I was part of this revolution, and I saw firsthand the mistakes that would happen. There was mismanagement on the ground, and under the conditions that we saw, it was really, really very difficult to see who's what. Everybody's making those statements, and the dynamic of the war and the battles, sometimes you're making the wrong decisions. But there were mistakes, for sure. But I tell you one thing, whether it's Qatar, whether it's the Emirates, whether France and other European countries, they had all good intentions to support the Libyan people, its uprising, and to stop the dictators. So the intentions were good. There was no evil thinking behind it, or some kind of a takeover of Libya's wealth and all that nonsense. Qatar has stood by its brothers in Libya, and that's basically it. Mistakes were done, yes.
There were no evil intentions, Shainaz.
Absolutely so.
Shainaz, your thoughts?
Yes, there is no evil intention in Libya. I think what's happening in Libya, it's a very bad example, because I know that Kataib 17 of February is still here. There is no police, and they are kidnapping people still, and there's still the chaos, still the mess in Libya. And I think, yes, the flow of weapons, it was not a very good thing. It's a very bad idea. And Qatar has a very big role in it, because they paid for it, they sent it. And so now they want to do the same thing in Syria. And they don't, yes, as you said, they don't learn from the lesson.
Jane Kinnamount, a moment ago, was harking back to the days when Qatar was making headlines as a mediator, the now former emir, who, for instance, back in just last October, becoming the first foreign head of state to visit Gaza in years, his message was one of support at the time, but also of conciliation.
First, the divisions between the Palestinians, and second, the divisions between the Arabs caused more damage to the Palestinian cause than the repeated Israeli aggressions. There's no peace negotiations, there's no clear strategy of resistance and liberation. Why shouldn't brothers sit together and reconcile and put the world before its responsibility? Either a just peace with Israel's consent or force Israel to agree to peace.
Charles Bruno, a good thing, no, to have a foreign head of state go into Gaza and say, hey, Palestinians, why don't you guys agree so that we can have a peace deal with the Israelis?
Yeah, it's true, but we should ask the previous emir why Qatar was giving money only to Hamas and not to the Palestinian Authority, contrary to the engagement which was done in Paris 2007 international conference. There was a big contradiction between that. Okay, the emir, the previous emir, is a friend of Khaled Meshal, but not to give support exclusively Hamas. It's one example of this contradiction in the Qatari diplomacy, and I think perhaps now it will change. Because there's no reason. Hamas, okay, has been elected in Gaza, but the Palestinian Authority is the vehicle through which we are making peace with Israel. The Palestinians are making.
How closely would you link Qatar with the Muslim Brotherhood franchise, be it in Syria, in Gaza, in Egypt?
They are their sponsorship. The previous emir was a guy extremely opportunistic. He had a vision. He overthrew his father, who didn't want to exploit the gas reserve, and after he was very opportunistic. He had the Sheikh Qaradawi in Doha. He has Al Jazeera, as it was said. He saw that with the beginning of the Arab Spring, with Al Jazeera, with Qaradawi, the Muslim brothers we have in Qatar, mainly the Libyans, the Tunisians, the son-in-law of Khanouchi, etc., we will use them. They are the only organized structure. We will use them in order to reinforce our influence, which was the emir goal.
All right, so drawing back, as we've all agreed on this panel, could be the way forward for the new emir. Does that mean loosening or severing the ties with the Muslim Brotherhood if they have this great tool of influence that...
No, but they have to share the cake. They have to open their help. They have to be more inclusive and not helping exclusively the Muslim brothers as they do with Hamas, as they did in Libya, as they were doing in Syria recently. And there was a big fighting in Istanbul recently. And the Saudis finally won. And the Saudis now are the real, as our colleague in London said, they are the real, through the Saudis are our friend to help the rebels to be harmed in Syria, because the Qataris went too far. And as it was said, I think with Tamim, we'll come back to a more soft diplomacy than before, when we had this diplomacy of fighting, of war in Libya and in Syria. So because it's very risky.
Shainaz, what will that mean, for instance, for the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt?
Yeah, I hope.
Will it have an impact on the Muslim Brotherhood?
Yeah, I think he will. The new emir, he will not cut this support like very fast, but I think it will be less. And I hope, yes, Muslim Brotherhood, they depend on Qatar a lot. And there are a lot of communication between them, and Qatar are supporting them, as I said, by money and also by media. So I hope this will be less, and it will maybe affect the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. Yes, I think. I think this support, they will lose this support. Beside also what's happening in Egypt, and they are losing all credibility, are losing all support from the Egyptian people. A lot of people who vote for them. I think this will be also another hit to the Muslim Brotherhood, because the Muslim Brotherhood also it's an international group.
Jane Kinnamount, we're talking about this drawback, but. Again, if you're Qatar and you have strong ties to the one party that's well organized in a country like Egypt, why would it be in your interest to suddenly, I don't know, pull back on funding, sever ties?
I don't think we're going to see a scenario where ties are severed. There's no suggestion that Sheikh Tamim takes a radically different approach from his father on this one. But you might see an inclination to restore more balance. Yes, the Brotherhood are the best organised party, but they have also been facing a growing opposition, and that's still disorganised, but in the longer term it is going to become more of a force. Yes, the Muslim Brotherhood has tended to be, in most of the transition countries, the single best organised and most popular player, but not a majority player. Even in Egypt, Mohamed Morsi only won a slim majority when the electorate faced a choice between him and a vote for essentially the old regime, for Mubarak's last prime minister. So it is risky for Qatar to put all its eggs in one basket.
George Bruno.
It was very interesting to see this afternoon at the ceremony of allegiance to see Sheikh Youssef Qaradawi kissing not only the front of the new emir but the shoulder of the new emir, which means he gave allegiance to the new emir. And you know, Sheikh Qaradawi was a tool of the previous emir through his preach on Al Jazeera in order to inflame the Arab streets or not. So it will be very interesting to watch, to monitor the tone of Sheikh Youssef Qaradawi in the coming weeks in his preaches.
I was going to say, the role Al Jazeera has played both in its coverage of the Arab Spring and in the pronouncements of the Egyptian cleric that you mentioned, host of the popular show Sharia and Life. Here's what he had to say at the beginning of the month concerning Syria.
الرجال الذين يحاربون الشعب السوري هم من يسمون أنفسهم حزب الله وهم حزب الطاغوت حزب الشيطان استحوذ عليهم الشيطان فأنساهم ذكر الله.
Satan is haunting them. He's been accused of fueling the divide between Sunnis and Shiites.
Yes, of course. Yes, he's a very big known Sheikh Imam, and everyone is listening to him. And he's Sunni, of course. So when he says that, I mean, I think maybe what happened in Egypt like a few days ago, when four Shia people were killed by.
So do you predict that going forward, Sheikh Qaradawi's shows will make for a lot more boring television?
I hope that the new emir, I think he will be changing also this part from his father and do not give Sheikh Qaradawi all this space because Sheikh Qaradawi, I think also now he's in a certain age and he's saying a lot of, I think I don't know how to call it, but a lot of bad things that make problems everywhere. So I think that the new emir he is not like his father. Is not very. He will not focus on this. He will not give this space to Sheikh Qaradawi.
Waid Bouchan, what's your prediction as to the religious programming we might see on Al Jazeera moving forward?
Well, I think clearly it has a lot of history, it has a lot of influence. I think I agree with the lady from Egypt. I think there needs to be some kind of a conciliatory tuning down, because I don't think it doesn't help the Muslim community in general. But I think there's a little bit, if I may say so, and I hate to be the defender of Qatar. I'm not the mouthpiece of Qatar. We are Libyan investors with the Qatari investors, and we're just partnership. But the idea, these discussions that we have, Sheikh Qaradawi kissing the shoulders, it's almost Masonic, it's almost like, kind of a conspiratorial kind of a imagery thing. I don't think that's a little bit too much. I think this is a social thing. I think it's somebody who is really providing allegiance. There's nothing. He's a Qatari citizen, Mr. Qaradawi, Sheikh Qaradawi. I think we're making too much of a Qatar and playing in the area and playing this conspiratorial kind of planning and thinking. It's very, very simple. They have successful programs. They have engaged the Arab in general, the Muslims in general. I think what needs to be done, somebody else presents other options for the same thing. They're successful. Their audience, they are impacting the environment. I think if we are in a marketplace, I think they need to have other, media providing other options.
All right, so it's up to the others to provide alternative programming. Jane Kinnemount, very briefly, because we're almost out of time. Your prediction as far as that goes, moving forward?
On the religious programming, on Sheikh Qaradawi,
Yes.
I think it's extremely dangerous, this rise in sectarian rhetoric, and I'm not confident that we will see necessarily a change under the new emir. As George said, he will face some pressure to appease religious conservatives at home. One way to do this is to roll back some of Qatar's pro-Western liberalism, but that's economically costly. And he may be tempted to continue to allow people such as Qaradawi to heat up the sectarian rhetoric, but it's extremely dangerous for the region and politically very counterproductive. And if there's one thing that they should be advised to change, this is probably it.
Jane Kinnemount, many thanks from London. I want to thank
Thank you.
Georges Malbruno, Shahinaz Abdel Salam, and Waid Bourshan for joining us from Tunis. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.